Welcome back. My name is Ali Hacks, and today, Tier List Tuesday. Before we get started here, I just wanted to thank everybody for the support on last week's tier list. I am blown away by just how many people were super interested in my opinions for the Final Fantasy protagonist. With that said, it is only fitting that we switch and we do the antagonist this week. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's just jump right into it. Alrighty, so here we have it. There is one on here who I don't actually recognize, and that is this blondie here. You can incriminate me all you want for it, it's okay. I'm predicting that just based on how the original creator for this tier list set it up, that it might be some Final Fantasy XI thing, because there's no duplicates from anywhere else. The other thing to say is, I am ranking the antagonist of each game. So in some cases, what we're ranking is not the final boss necessarily, and some of it is, somebody who maybe changes their heart halfway through. You'll see what I mean as we get to them in the games. I'll talk a little bit about each of them. Obviously, you have your typical tiers, S, A, B, C, D. S, I love them. D, I don't love them. Now, I'm a big fan of a lot of the villains in this series, or antagonists, I should say. They get me really excited. You're going to see a lot of people pretty high up. You're going to see one or two pretty low. So, we're going to kick it off. Final Fantasy I. Garland. Now, technically, Final Fantasy I struggles to have an antagonist. It is an older game. It was very black and white. It was very, you're really just trying to rescue the world from the darkness. So if anything is an antagonist, it's just the darkness in general. So while I have a template of Garland here, I'm not necessarily ranking Garland as much as I'm ranking the antagonist from Final Fantasy I, if that makes sense. So, because it's so cookie cutter, but it is the beginning, it's your most basic thing, I'm going to go ahead and put it in C tier. If we were to rank the Dissidia version of Garland, I like how he kind of sticks back to the roots. And even at the end of Final Fantasy I, when you talk to Garland right before you beat him as Chaos, I like the whole time loop idea. I like how evil he is with that. And if we had more expansion on that, he would be an easy B tier. But again, because we're really ranking antagonist, there isn't much of an antagonist, really, for Final Fantasy I. Final Fantasy II, we had our antagonist as the Emperor. Oh, what was the name of the Empire? I can't remember. We'll be able to find that out starting this week. So, the Emperor, he's just an all-around bad guy. He's looking for world domination. He wants to rule the entire world, and it's your typical evil empire type of drama. The thing is in Final Fantasy II, he is actually, the reason for all the bad stuff in the world. It's a very strict regime. He's just not a good guy. He's a tyrant. He's just evil to the core, but there's nothing real uplifting about him story-wise. He's evil. That's it. There's no, this is why I'm evil, or anything like that. For that reason, I'm also going to put him in C tier. I know. I said we're going to have some high tiers. Just wait. It gets good. For Final Fantasy III, this template I found lists Cloud of Darkness. She is not the antagonist of the game. She is just the final boss. You don't even know who or what the Cloud of Darkness is until suddenly you're fighting her. The true antagonist of Final Fantasy III is a warlock by the name of Xand, or Xanda, whatever you want to call him. He kind of makes an appearance in Final Fantasy XIV as well, which is pretty cool. They kind of pay homage to a lot of the previous entries in the series in the online version, which is pretty cool. But if we're going to be ranking the antagonist of Final Fantasy III, Xand is a man who feels betrayed by his master. So there are three great mages that were trained by the original mage himself in Final Fantasy III, and Xand is one of those three. where the other disciples both receive great gifts when the original wizard passes away. Zan does not. Zan's gift is mortality, and he's not happy about that. One of the others gets eternal life, I think. Olga is the one that gets eternal life. She sleeps most of it away. The other one gets almighty magic. Zan gets mortality, and he hates that. He's not happy about that. And so because of that, he seeks to destroy the world. Again, he's really just evil for the sake of being evil, but at least he has a bit of a backstory. And then the Cloud of Darkness is just that. It is just darkness. The Cloud it exists as a way to overtake the entire world into darkness. I'm going to go ahead and put Zan/Cloud of Darkness in B, because we finally start to get a bit of a backstory, and we do find out why this person is evil. They're just very bitter. They feel it was unfair, blah, blah, blah. Final Fantasy IV, Golbez. Oh, what a good villain. What a good villain. I don't want to spoil too much about this, but I will tell you Golbez is not the final boss of Final Fantasy IV. You do fight him, but he is not the final boss. Golbez is a conflicting character. He is a parallel to the protagonist Cecil in more ways than one. I don't want to spoil too much about the game if you haven't played the game, but I will say that Golbez is definitely one of my more favorite villains. He seeks to... what is it exactly he's trying to do? Without spoiling. He wants to wake up the people on the moon. He wants to get to the moon. And it's still kind of a destroy the world type thing, but that's not really his goal. It's more... It's hard to get into exactly. If you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you're thinking to yourself, like, oh, yeah. Like, Golbez, yeah. It's hard to call Golbez a villain by the end of Final Fantasy IV, but he is the main antagonist of Final Fantasy IV. He's going into the S tier for me. He is phenomenal. I love the Final Fantasy IV DS remake. I love his voice acting. In Dissidia, again, voice acting. I love his armor. I love that he's a master mage wearing heavy plate armor. I love him. He's a great antagonist. Now we're going to kind of go back down on the decline with Exdeath. I've said it before in my other tier list. I don't know much about Final Fantasy V. That will change. Don't worry. We're going to get there. But as of right now, I don't know enough about Final Fantasy V to give this man a true rating. Or give this thing, I guess, from what I know of the game. I have to throw Exdeath into the D tier, and if you like him as a villain, I am sorry. I don't do it because I hate him. I only do it because I don't know him. Next, Kefka. You don't need to know Final Fantasy VI to know who Kefka is and why he is evil. Why is he evil? He's literally batshit crazy. He's just batshit crazy. He wants to rule the world, as far as I know. Disclaimer, haven't played Final Fantasy VI yet. From the previous tier list, I saw a bit of hate about how I felt about the protagonist, Terra, and I promise that was only from ignorance, but in this case, Kefka, he's truly insane. And similarly to how the antagonist from 1, 2, and 3 worked, he is just evil, but it's because he's insane. I believe he starts at one point as, like, the jester in the King's Court, but I'm not sure. I don't really want to speak on what I don't know. I really look forward to playing this game and getting to intricately know who Kefka is. From what I know of Kefka, though, he belongs in the A tier. Man's like an A-class villain. He's more than just an antagonist. This guy is evil, and it's because he's batshit, and that's the best. I think he is a good villain for the same reason that a lot of people really, really like the Joker as a villain in Batman, right? He's just crazy, and because of that, he's unpredictable, and he's also powerful. Final Fantasy VII. As you can hear in the back right now, it's telling us who we're rating next. Our boy, the one-winged angel, Sephiroth himself. Before we talk about him, I'm going to put him in the S tier. I think we can call me basic for it. It's fine. I stand for Sephiroth. He's crazy powerful. He's got that stupidly huge sword. He is probably the most famous and infamous villain in all of the Final Fantasy history. Mans is hellbent on not necessarily destroying the world, but restoring the world to what he thinks it should be based on who he thinks he is. He basically finds out that he was a test tube baby, so to speak, and he was heavily experimented on, and it kind of cracks him, makes him go wild. It really, really explores other villain stories in Crisis Core, and it's a very similar story to why he goes crazy. He is without a doubt the antagonist of Final Fantasy VII, just due to the fact that the entire game, his entire existence just haunts Cloud's mind at all times. It could be argued that the Final Fantasy VII antagonist is actually Shinra Company, because the whole point of what you're doing is trying to, bring down the Shinra Company at first. And either answer would be okay. If I were ranking the Shinra Company, I'd probably put them down into an A. Big evil corporations, very similar to the real world. It is what it is. So, Sephiroth, though, S tier. He's powerful. He's wonderful. He's evil as hell. We love it. Final Fantasy VIII, Ultimisia. I don't know too much about her, unfortunately. I have said before, I only played about half of Final Fantasy VIII. And I've met not her, but the precursor to her. I know that most of the game, it's about an evil sorceress, and it's not her at first. I can't remember her name. And then eventually you do fight Ultimisia herself, but I think Ultimisia isn't evil. I don't know. I don't know enough about her to justify a ranking. I would be remiss if I were to give her a bad ranking because I don't know anything about her. So she's gonna go where X Death goes, and that's in the D tier. And you know what? We're gonna take this off D tier. It's not even the D tier anymore. It is the I do not know these enemies. People. Looking at you, X Death, not a people. So yeah, she's gonna go down there for now. I'm hoping that she's got a really good story when we get to 8. That'll be a lot of fun. Final Fantasy IX, Kuja. Another game where the antagonist takes a good parallel from the protagonist, in this case, Zidane. They're both of the same race, and there is a natural hatred that should be built up between Zidane and Kuja, in the fact that it's Kuja who abandons Zidane long before the game begins, and is what causes Zidane to become who he is. This whole time, of course, Kuja knows all this, while Zidane knows none of it. I think it's a really good build. I think it's really nice to see him kind of at first in the shadows, with Queen Braun thinking she controls everything. So I guess in that regard, you almost think that Queen Braun is the antagonist for the first half of the story. He is 100% a really good protagonist. He has the basic greed and selfishness that you would expect out of a villain, and that's how he acts. He's also childish, but that makes sense because in real years he's not actually that old. Same with any of the others in their race, I believe. I think that obviously I don't agree with what he does. I'm not a villain myself, but as far as villains go, I like what he does, and I like how he tries to support Braun until he can steal what he needs from Braun. He uses people. He's good at what he does. He knows how to be the bad guy. It's not like he's floundering around just accidentally destroying anything. Everything is calculated. He knows what he's doing. He's really intelligent. I'm going to put him in the A tier above Kefka. I know more about him. That's the reason why. Kefka is an A tier on reputation alone. Kuja belongs up here. Alright. So, then we have our wonderful, wonderful boy from Final Fantasy X. I'm struggling to remember this guy's name right now, but I know you fight him multiple times in the story. I can find out what his name is. 1 second. Let's see. Seymour. How did I forget about Seymour? Yeah, I have no idea how I forgot about Seymour. Seymour is somebody who at the beginning you don't even know he's the antagonist. In a way, he shares the antagonist status with Sin, which is the big world-destroying thing that's going on. But really, you find out that Seymour really isn't quite right. He's not all there in the head. You fight him twice? 2 or 3 times in the story, and one of them is a stupidly hard fight just because it's so RNG. I'm not really a big fan of him. His story isn't super memorable to me, and I have played 10 a few times. His motivations are kind of silly, I think. I think what he wants to be doing is... I think he's wanting to keep Sin in the world, but I can't remember, to be completely honest. I'm not a big fan of him. He's going to naturally go in the C tier just because I don't like him. This guy, like I said, I don't know him. He can just sit in there. Tell me in the comments who he is. Alright. Final Fantasy 12. This is the... Viscount? Is that what he was? I'm not sure what his exact title was. But I do know you meet him at the very beginning of the game when your home city, which you're gonna have to excuse me, I am unable to remember the name of that either. But you meet him at the beginning because he is the one who is supposed to be kind of the regent lord of the main city at the beginning. So I can't remember. Was it Marquis or I don't know. He had some cool little title. Vane did, but I don't know enough about Final Fantasy 12 to rate him on a personal feelings, I guess. I know we're running into that on a couple characters on this tier list, and I am sorry about that. Vane is hard for me to rank because I don't necessarily see him as the antagonist in Final Fantasy 12 as much as I see just like the judges as base antagonists, because he's more hidden from a lot of it, right? I haven't beaten 12, I will say that, and that's a common with the other ones. So I think because of that, I think it'd be fair to throw Vane in I do not know these people, even though I do know who he is. So I do not know enough. That's what we're going to change this. Enough about. There. That's better. Okay. 13. This man right here. Some of you know he is not the final boss, and some of you, if you haven't played the game, you're not 100% sure of who he is. But this is Dicely, also known as Bartendilus. He is the mastermind behind a lot of what's going on throughout the entire course of Final Fantasy 13. He is not technically evil. The thing about the antagonists and all the bad guys is they're not evil. They just exist on a different plane than your basic mortals in the game. So Bartendilus, you fight him 3 times in the game, and the first time you fight him, if you're not prepared for him, I remember when Final Fantasy 13 came out, there was a lot of people talking about how hard the first fight against Bartendilus was. And then now it's just so many people know about the game and how to beat him easy. It's just a joke to think about him now. He is the main reason that the entire cast ends up getting turned into l'Cie, even though he is a cocoon fal'Cie. He is super intelligent. Every single thing he does is calculated. He's a dick, which we shouldn't be surprised. He's not immortal. He is fal'Cie. We don't like fal'Cie. That is pretty much determined throughout the course of the game. However, as a villain, he has to go up and sit in the S tier with me. You're noticing in every one of these tier lists, Final Fantasy 13 stuff kind of goes up into the S tier. There's a reason for that. I love the game. It's such a good game. I can't wait for us to get there in our Let's Play series, and I hope you guys are excited for that too. I am going to take our resident bad boy from Final Fantasy 14, and we're going to put him in the bottom tier. I know plenty about him. I've played the game for quite a while, but I will not be playing the game as part of a Let's Play or anything on the channel. I'm not interested in ranking him, especially knowing as there could be seen as multiple different antagonists throughout the course of Final Fantasy 14, so he can sit down here. And then, at long last, we have Arden. I think throughout most of the game of Final Fantasy 15, it's hard to tell who your antagonist is, and I think maybe that's why I struggle, I guess, with enjoying the game, because for most of it, to me, there's no real reason why I'm doing a lot. Arden is 100%. He is the final boss, he's the antagonist, he's the bad guy, all of that noise. I don't like him. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't understand why he's evil. I've only played Final Fantasy 15 the one time to date, from start to finish. And I can't say that I'm really a fan of this guy, or I don't know why he's evil. I don't know why he does what he does. He goes into the C tier for me. Yeah, so that's my tier list here. There's a lot of commons here based on what you see with the games, if you go back and watch that tier list, and then for the protagonist as well. The games I tend to like for a reason, right? And it's because of the characters and the story in that game. And usually the villains have a very large part to do with that. So even in this shows you some of my more favorited Final Fantasy games, to an exception, of course, of Final Fantasy 3. Yeah, I hope you liked my tier list and my opinions on this. Sorry, I kind of blabbled a little bit for some of those. If you agree or disagree at all about any of these, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I know I'm sure to hear some hate about forgetting my boy Seymour. I do just want to remind everyone, this is just for fun. I only do these for fun, to have a good time. I like to kind of share how I feel about these, why I love this game series as much as I do. I grew up on Final Fantasy, right? Final Fantasy has been the number one game for me my whole life. It's always been my comfort game, my happy place game, everything I love more than anything else. If I'm trying to relax, my go-to is always, which Final Fantasy should I load up? If you saw the desktop on my computer, I have a really nice line of the Final Fantasy games. I have multiple different versions for all of them. I love the games. That's the wonderful thing about a lot of games, right? Is we can share our love for them. And these tier lists are just one of those ways that we can do that. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope to see you on the next video, and I really hope I'm excited to see your opinions on the villains down in the comment section below. Until next time, I have been Ali Hacks. This is Tier List Tuesday. Bye-bye.